Assalamu alaikum. Answers and conclusions of the Conference of Muslim Jurists of America are discussed in this episode of Focus Point. Discussions, debates, and even votes took place in the closing session of the 4th annual conference held in Egypt and organized by the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America in collaboration with the International Islamic Council for Dawah and Relief. Dr. Wahab al-Zuhaili read out the final recommendations and rulings which the scholars at the conference have unanimously agreed upon. The following topics were addressed in the closing session: political participation by Muslims living in Western countries and the guidelines for such participation, Muslim women issues such as women's share in inheritance, her testimony and political participation, necessity and need, and their impact on issuing rulings and fatwas, Islamic financing system, its institutions and mechanism in the USA. For more information on the results of the conference, please visit AMJA website www.amjaonline.com. And now we are pleased to have Dr. Ibrahim Dremali. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Can you please kindly brief us on the conclusions of this conference?
First, actually, the conclusion for the political system in America. Can the Muslims be part of the political system or not? And there is a dawabit, or there is a limit for the Muslims to be part of the political system. In fact, this is a very critical issue in the United States of America, because a lot of people, they didn't know to be part of the political system or not to be part of the political system, to vote or not to vote, and so on. So today, actually, we were very happy that Al-Majma' Amja, they decided just to be part of this. It's not a problem for the Muslim to be part of this, as far as if that person, the senator or the Congress, to be helping the Muslims. If they are able to do so, this is fine. It's not a problem with that, as far as also is not be compromising in our aqidah. And also the other things, they discussed the women issue. The women issue regarding her rights in inheritance. Sometimes they divide it to 3 types. Sometimes the man takes more than the woman, sometimes they are equal, and sometimes the woman more than the man. And that was excellent conclusion, actually, with the Amja decided where and what the woman she should take, and so on.
What about the women's participation in the political process?
They discussed that too. She's able to be part of the political system as far as she following the proper hijab and proper communication with men and so on. So they agree with that also.
What about other issues like the financial issues, for instance?
Yes, they spoke about the companies and the stock market, and also they spoke in details regarding this, and the conclusion, yes, you can be part of any company as far as the company going in the right direction. It's not against, it's not something haram or prohibited. It's not something against the Islams and the Muslims and so on. So also for the people to be aware exactly where they put their money and how they invest the money.
So what about the forms of the financial Islamic institutions? I saw some objections or some sort of contracts and so on. Can you explain more details about that?
Yes, the objection regarding if I have employees and the employees are supposed to have a certain salary for them, for example, X dollars, not a percentage of dollars. So the confusion, some doctors say, is actually one doctor says, no, you have to tell exactly how much, a specific number. And the other group of people, they says it's okay to give a percentage. Say, if you sell this car, I will give you 10%. That Islamically is correct. So they make voting, of course, and the majority of the people, they agree with that. It's okay to give a percentage.
What about the mortgage solutions?
The mortgage solution, they discussed the other companies like lariba.com or guidance.com, and those companies, they're mortgage companies. All of them, the Majma' or the Amjad, they decided those people, they have some kind of fishy conditions in the contract. So regarding this, they preferring not for the people not to deal with it, period.
So how do you see the declaration that went about the situation in Lebanon, Palestine, and Iraq?
Yes, they condemned all this kind of barbaric situation over there, what's going on with the Israelis. They demolished the whole country, killing the civilians. They condemned that strongly.
About a necessity and need and their rulings in Sharia, how did they bring this into discussion, and what are the results with that?
They bring it to the decision as far as those scholars, they are in the field, and they are here, all of them here from different countries, different places, different majors, and so on. They decided this is what's going on in Lebanon is a matter of Muslims. What's going on in Palestine is a matter of Muslims. In Iraq also is a matter of Muslims. And we have to be part of this. So if you, they just like the Prophet says, they say, if the matter of Muslims is not important to you, that means you are not part of the Muslims. So because they are here, they feel strong responsibility to condemn that and to speak about that and to make the people aware about it.
And they talked about this necessity, I mean, al-darura wal-hajj, necessity and need,
yes,
in the Islamic Sharia, and their exceptional rules. Yes. So we need to know about that, and what are the conclusions that they came with?
Okay, they defined what is the necessary, what is necessity. They defined it strongly, and it's very beautiful actually. They say what is necessity for, and they speaking about also for the doctors, how to deal with the patients if in a certain room, for example, if that the room is open, or for the nurse to enter is halal or haram. So they spoke about this also. But the most important thing in the whole conclusion with this, they define what is necessity and how to work with that. And this is really beautifully actually, this because you cannot make a general ruling. You have to have a specific event, specific things to base your condition or your fatwa on it. Yeah, so this is, but the conclusion with that, they define what is exactly necessity is.
And now we have Sheikh Abdurrahman bin Aqil. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, financial issues were discussed in this conference. Can you please explain to us the recommendations and the decisions of the conference about these issues?
Yes, I think the conference has answered some of the questions facing the Muslims, how to execute their transactions Islamically while they are in the West, since they don't have the foundations or the institutions like the Muslims living in the Muslim world. So first of all, the conference emphasized that there is a need for establishing Islamic banks, and also there is a need for establishing insurance companies, and there is a need for establishing investment companies. All these can use the Islamic transactions to fulfill the need of the Muslim society in the West, avoiding using the riba as a tool, avoiding using all the tools which is against Islamic education and rules. And this particular, there have been discussion about ijara or lease ending with ownership of the goods that is on contract, like cars, like mortgages, like anything that Muslim can need, appliances also. This is one of the tools that can be used. Also, there is al-murabaha, which is deferred sale, which you can buy something right now and pay it in installments through the Islamic rules, and also trying to find another solutions for Muslims to fulfill their need, avoiding these riba instruments which are used widely in the West. The conference actually, and the scholars in the conference, emphasized that need, and they put this responsibility on any Muslim who is living in the West who can help to fulfill this need of the Muslim society. And they are asking that even through like the United States of America, through all the United States, all over the United States, or through a state-wise within the state itself as a solution, through cooperative organization or any kind of firm that can be acceptable to the Federal Reserve of the United States of America. And we hope that this kind of recommendation can be listened to by and read by the businessmen and able people who can carry on this responsibility and fulfill the need of the Muslims in the West. And this is a very good start in this stage. Muslims, more than 10 million in the United States as example, and they need so many kind of organization and institutions in order to fulfill their need. And this, for the financial part, this is what we need in order to comply with Islamic rules while we are in the West.
Yeah. And what about other tools or other forms of transactions, Islamic transactions that might be discussed in the conference?
There are so many tools used in Islamic, acceptable by Islamic Sharia, but to introduce them to the West, you need to have more studies, and also you may need to do some comparative studies between what is used right now in the United States and what can we adapt within our Islamic system with some modification in order to fulfill the need. Like as an example, scholarship, how can we get a kind of scholarship for our children, for the universities, and how can we get what kind of help in order to do some medication for our illness people. All these needs can be fulfilled by Islamic tools. This can be through Islamic bank, investment company, and other forms can be, our institutions can carry on all these tools.
Did you have anything about Social Security?
Social Security system, as a citizen in the United States, they have their own system, and companies also, they have their own banking system, and this is one of the ways that cooperatively between the Muslims can do so much in this regard. And Islam is asking us to be together. Islam is asking us to put hands together, to cooperate with each other. And as much as we put hands together, as much as we can do better. And we have, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, we reach our goals easily, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And now we are pleased to have Dr. Hatim Al-Hajj, who will explain to us the conclusions of this conference.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Well, the conference discussed several issues. Some of them are pertinent to or pertain to politics, and some pertain to economics, and some pertain to pretty much the effect of the necessities and needs of the Muslim minorities on the permissibility of certain jobs. And there was also a discussion about the conditions, the current conditions in Lebanon and Palestine and other places, particularly because of the current events. With regards to their conclusions about the political involvement of the Muslim minorities in the West, they have agreed on the permissibility of this with conditions, the permissibility within certain guidelines and restricted by conditions and guidelines and so on and so forth. They have mentioned several forms of political involvement, such as making lobbies and demonstrating, boycotting, and political involvement in general, making alliances with other parties that are not necessarily Muslim, as long as the political involvement of the Muslim minority would serve the cause of this minority in the West, and there would be no greater harm ensuing from such involvement. The other issue was regarding the different Islamic mortgage companies, or so-called Islamic mortgage companies. So far, they have not really found companies that are Islamic and that provide Islamic contracts. The scholars do not mention the names of companies, but they mention the name of the companies that are acceptable, that have acceptable transactions to the standard of the scholars. And they mentioned the name of one company, which happened to be a Jewish company in Chicago. They have limited reach because they are mainly in Chicago, so it will not be able to finance for Muslims all over the U.S., but just in their location.
Please have more details on the political part of the conclusions. I mean, in more specific details.
The political involvement of the Muslim minorities in the West?
What are the rulings and what are the guidelines?
Well, the guidelines would include that there would be no greater harm from this involvement than the benefit that's expected. Some of the harm that could take place would be dividing the Muslims. Now, the Muslims got divided, and some Muslims became with this particular alliance and other Muslims became with the other particular alliance. This will lead to dissension within the Muslim community, and they will have no power. If they are divided between themselves, they will have no voting power because their votes will be divided. The other concern is that their political involvement or involvement in politics would divert their attention away from da'wah, from education, from other activities that may be more needed by the Muslim community, particularly in this phase of their existence in the West. The other guideline is that this involvement should not be aimed at, or these alliances that the Muslims will make in the West with these various groups should not be aimed against their brethren, their Muslim brethren, whether their Muslim brethren in the West or East. And that's basically it. As long as they have fulfilled the conditions and they have taken this political involvement as one of the activities, not the most important, not the only or important activity, but one of the activities that the Muslim community needs in such places. And if they accept also the efforts, or recognize and acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of those who are involved in da'wah, those who are involved in education, those who are involved in social services, and those who are involved in the various activities of the Muslim community.
What about the other conclusions of the conference?
Like I said, I was talking about the Islamic mortgage or Islamic financing companies, and so far they said that the Devon Bank in Chicago had agreed to accept the terms of the Islamic contract and the conditions and guidelines of the Islamic contract, and they have implemented them. Therefore, the scholars had decreed their transactions permissible. The other companies that are licensed in the West now, or particularly in America, it's mainly with regards to the issue of Islamic financing. They address the companies that are operational in America, not necessarily in Europe, because there may be permissible transactions in Europe, but we were talking about America in particular, and they have not found many. They mentioned the Devon Bank as one of the permissible ones. The other issue also would be the issue of the jobs and the role of necessity and need on the effect and impact of necessity and need on the permissibility or lack of permissibility of certain jobs. They were not particularly specific this time. Maybe in a different conference they will address the detailed issues. Yet they address the issue from more theoretical viewpoint, and they just defined what the necessity is, what the need is, and what the conditions of necessities and needs are.
What about investment in stock shares?
I think they did not address this particular issue in detail, but the issue here is the assemblies before divided the stocks and shares into different groups, and there is that one group that accepts the Islamic conditions in their transactions from A to Z, and there is the group that doesn't from A to Z, or that have very impermissible transactions and their main activities are impermissible. And with regards to these groups, there is no controversy. The controversy is regarding the one group in the middle, whose main activity is permissible, yet their transactions are somewhat tainted with some deviations from the Islamic conditions. And with regards to this group, they've disagreed in their presentations. So there was no final conclusion.
This was our coverage of the Conference of the Muslim Jurists of America. Thank you and see you later.
Oh